What is happening?
Get me out of here.
There is no out of here. You've been killed. Don't you remember?
Nightmares are an aberration. They come out of nowhere and disturb us in our most vulnerable state. Ranging from confusing and unnerving to even torturous for some of us, they're most certainly unwelcome and unwanted. Nevertheless, we have no power over them. Jacob's Ladder is a haunting and enigmatic film, requiring full commitment from the audience to overcome the challenge of piecing together the nightmarish events that have plagued Jacob's life. Released in 1990 by TriStar Pictures, it is a work of screenwriter Bruce Joel Rubin and director Adrian Lyne. It took the #1 spot at the box office in the weekend it was released, but the film barely broke even after audience attendance quickly dropped off. It wasn't until later that it developed a cult-like following like many other horror films of the 70s and 80s. It also served as a prominent influence on various horror video games, most notably Team Silent, the creators of Silent Hill 2. As to why the film hadn't garnered as much well-deserved attention still puzzles me, since the brutal gangster flick Goodfellas had released 2 months beforehand, and Stephen King's Misery was a success a mere 3 weeks later. In this video, I don't plan to dissect the entire film, but rather discuss the editing and how the party montage can bring us into this subjective experience of Jacob's character. If you're looking for an in-depth analysis of the film in its entirety, I cannot recommend RagnarRox's Monsters of the Week video enough. I'm envious of his scriptwriting and narration abilities, and I regard him as a significant source of inspiration for this video. Fortunately, if you haven't seen the film, I'm going to avoid spoiling it all for you, but I believe it to be a better experience when you know nothing about it. With that said, let's begin. Our scene takes place fairly early into the movie. Our main character Jacob is at a house party with his girlfriend Jessie, although he feels uneasy, and for good reason. He encounters 2 disturbing situations while wandering about, one while opening a refrigerator and another after lifting a blanket. Of what we can assume is an effort to escape the crowd, he heads upstairs, but runs into a palm reader who's anxious to tell his fortune. After accepting, she tells him something rather strange.
No, it's not funny. See, according to this, you're already dead. You out of here, baby.
Trying to cheer himself up, he goes to dance with Jessie as she'd asked him earlier, but his stress gets the better of him and he has to excuse himself. This is where things get truly agonizing. This is when Jacob starts to lose it. He struggles to escape the crowd and finds various people around him disturbing. Then he's assaulted by frightening images, including flashes of the crows and horsehead returning to haunt him. Most notably, though, is this. After losing his balance and picking his glasses back up, he rises to meet something even more aggravating. Now he witnesses Jessie getting awfully close with her friend, and there's something off about him. Jacob can't help but watch as the 2 continuously get aggressive, and then this happens. Terrified, he stumbles backwards and collapses. The key factor to the effectiveness of this sequence is collision. Ramping up the intensity during this scene is engaging. It gets our blood pumping and makes us try to piece together everything that we're seeing. Collision is a term frequently associated with Sergei Eisenstein and his ideas about montage, but what I was really looking to share was the important insight by Carol Perman in her book Cutting Rhythms. In it, she says, "Cutting quickly before a spectator can assimilate the full content curve of an image creates an illusion on the spectrum somewhere between pure collision and pure linkage, because it unsettles the viewer and activates tension about what is unseen in the shot that is flashed by." This quote perfectly captures the appeal of this sequence. We see the crows, the skull, and the demonic limbs flash by, but we hardly have time to process what we saw. We're unsettled because there was so much left unseen. This was, in fact, one of director Adrian Lynn's goals that he explained in the documentary, Building Jacob's Ladder.
And so, using imagery of, say, Francis Bacon, because of the blurred kind of imagery that he uses, where you can't quite see what's going on, because there's movement in it, and you get a sense that there's something quite ghastly going on in that shadow, you know what I'm saying? That I'm not seeing clearly. So that was a kind of a premise for the movie. Never let people see stuff too clearly or for too long.
On top of that, all of the special effects were done practically. Most notably are the violently shaking heads we see multiple times throughout the film.
You know, so we had things that had to shake, you know, and I was doing effects within the camera. I was turning over, for example, at 4 frames rather than 24 frames. And when you blurred it in whatever way one used, it suddenly, you couldn't see it clearly, so there was a sense of maybe what you weren't seeing was awful.
The pace and rhythm of this scene are also well crafted in maintaining the viewer's attention. They work together in creating a chaotic environment that is disorienting and maddening. For example, the pace is slowed once Jacob drops his glasses, but once he puts them back on and stands up, the rhythm shifts thanks to the strobe lights, and the pace becomes increasingly staccato, cutting back and forth between him and this demon, pleasuring his girlfriend before it climaxes with a disgusting image. Then, the pace slows once more as he falls, and the rhythm, like a slow heartbeat, as horrific visions of the crowd leer over him like vultures. The way the film makes use of these editing mechanics makes this nightmare of Jacob's all the more real to us, especially since we don't see him and his visions in the same shot together. Jacob's Ladder is a mystery and a nightmare worth exploring for yourself. Rather than discuss the symbolism and historical context behind the film, I'm going to use this opportunity to suggest that you see it for yourself. After you do, give RagnarRox's Monsters of the Week video a watch. You'll want to after seeing the movie anyway. It's an experience that'll linger with you long after it's over. Thanks for watching.